Hey friends, today's topic is improving your aim in Marathon, getting pro level aim. I saw a clip on Twitter that reminded me of games journalists failing a tutorial that went something like,
don't understand how people like this game. Oh, hold up, I gotta shoot an enemy. Like, these enemies have too much health. What the hell is going on? Like, look, I'm doing so much damage. And then he puts up his...
So that inspired me to do a quick commentary that tells you the secret to good aim in Marathon is not playing Marathon. Now, nobody comment section W, he told us not to play Marathon. You're going to return to it when you're good at aiming. I'm not saying don't play the game. I'm saying if you're a low skill, low dexterity player, you're not going to have a great time in an extraction shooter. So you can return to it later when you have at least average aim. So if you are absolutely new to gaming, just play any game. It doesn't have to be a first-person shooter. Just have fun and get used to where the buttons are on your controller or your mouse and keyboard. For beginners to first-person shooters, look for a low-stakes PvE-centric game. This could be Halo campaigns on easy difficulty, Portal 1 and 2, Borderlands campaigns, Destiny 2 campaigns until you get stuck. You could look up a guide, but there are various activities in this game, and you could probably find one until you're comfortable. There's Minecraft, Fallout, Cyberpunk, Stalker, and so many more. The first thing you want to do is consider immediately changing your controller settings for bumper jumper, which means the bumpers make you jump, or claw, which means you physically move your index finger to hit the face buttons, meaning ABXY on Xbox, or is it cross on PlayStation? Square, circle, triangle. It's not healthy for your hand. It's not ergonomic. Maybe that's the correct word. So then the next thing to do would be buy a controller with paddles or extra buttons on the bottom. And those are expensive, so I can't even recommend that. But if you do, definitely get the warranty. But at the very least, at least try bumper jumper right off the rip, because the goal to aiming good on a controller is to always have your thumb on the right stick without the need to take your thumb off to jump. Next, you need to choose a sensitivity that is slightly uncomfortable to aim at objects from the hip. When you aim at actual enemies, controller aim assist will kick in, and it'll feel so much easier to control any weapon in that game. For mouse and keyboard players, make sure your sprint, crouch, grenade, and melee and action binds allow your fingers to stay on W, A, and D. Your mouse can help be flexible here by binding something to the two side buttons in the scroll wheel, but keep in mind that advanced players do bind spacebar to the scroll wheel for easier bunny hopping. When in doubt, just look up what pros are using and maybe copy their binds. Next tip, if you play on a television, beware of input lag. Check to see that you're using the right cables and low latency settings. This is especially important for PC players with a very expensive rig. If you have like a 240 frame monitor and a monster graphics card, go to your control panel or your graphics setting and make sure that your monitor is actually outputting 240 frames. There are some people with NASA space station rigs that are still stuck on 60 FPS and they think it looks buttery smooth, and they don't realize they could have been playing on 240 this entire time. Anyway, just gonna move on. Your goal as a beginner is to have so much fun gaming that you don't even have to think about what button to press. When that's the case, start trying to focus on basic crosshair placement. Don't look at the floor when moving, keep the crosshair at least at chest level, and start utilizing cover more and cutting the pie. Which is a fancy way of saying, as you're walking out of cover, keep your crosshair glued to where your opponent's head will be while exposing as little of your body as possible. Be cautious of always sprinting and having your weapon readied when approaching a gunfight. Don't just aim with the right stick or just the mouse. Use movement to help subtly adjust aim. Now for intermediate aimers, I want you to be looking for faster paced PvE experiences like RoboQuest or Call of Duty Zombies. Also look for low stakes PvP experiences, which can include Fortnite. Although it's third person, it does have some first person zoom weapons, Apex Legend party modes. Now, I don't really know if they exist, but look for party modes in a game when given the option. Counter-Strike does have party modes and deathmatch modes, so you can get as many reps as quickly as possible. Star Wars Battlefront. maybe Battlefield, and so on. At this point in your journey, I'd focus on learning to shoot on the move. Get used to sliding and short hops while looking around and dealing damage. Throw in the odd crouch to correct upward recoil. Start obsessing over rapidly switching target priorities. Aggressively jiggle peek cover and start blind pre-firing. Force yourself to jump shot more often. Swap weapons every shot for fun. Challenge yourself to hit long distance grenade tosses. Always shoot a single bullet before instantly meleeing the enemy. And so many more small tips. For an advanced aimer, you need to be looking for higher skill ceiling opportunities and PvE experiences. This means Ultra Kill, Titanfall 2, Quake, and other boomer shooters. If you just take a quick look at the Steam store and search boomer shooter, there's a lot of unique, very fun ones that are frequently on sale for just a couple dollars. You also look for higher intensity PvP experiences, which include Apex Legends, Overwatch, Valorant, and so forth. This is the point where aim trainers can make a difference for certain players. If at any point an aim trainer feels like a chore though, I wouldn't recommend them. This is where you start practicing specific nuances for your specific game. In the case of Destiny, for example, when I snipe and I'm holding a tight angle, I purposely do not move my crosshair or move my character because the aim assist will then take over and drag my crosshair into the wall otherwise. I literally have to just not click anything except for the trigger and hit a reactionary shot. There is likely a detailed video breaking down aiming nuances for almost every game on the market, and I've done that video many times in Destiny history and will link at least one of them in the description. Finally, on our aim journey, we get to the professional level. This is where a combination of practice and talent do make the difference. Most of these demons are built through scrimming repeatedly. Their aim skill is just as much raw speed and consistency as it is player behavior predictions and following through. They get to break the rules of aiming because they're usually thinking a few moves ahead. For example, it's not a great idea to look at the ground unless you're about to jump out of cover. Maybe they were looking down so that that specific gun model doesn't hide a certain sight line so they can gather more information from it. Since they have the ability to quickly snap to targets, they get the luxury to hold in between angles and rely on reaction speed but cover multiple options. This, in tandem with a fast vertical playstyle, makes a low-skill player feel like the pro is everywhere at once. Pros usually also get the luxury of having teammates that are also high skill, which means they can specialize their aim to a specific type of weapon that their teammate can cover weaknesses from. They also get better team communication, which gives them a better mental map to make decisions, and so on. Pros aren't infallible though. Even pros look bad when they can't fall back on experience. Take Overwatch's Jetpack Cat, for example. Pros didn't know what to do when any enemy at any moment could take flight. I don't want beginner players to be discouraged from rough losses because momentum and snowballing is usually a factor. Little improvements add up and can feel like exponential skill growth if the right piece of the puzzle is practiced enough to finally be in the right place for your team. That pretty much covers my commentary. I'm going to talk about specific Destiny nuances now, as well as talk about specific tools Destiny offers to brush up on your aim, even if you're a marathon player. And keep in mind, Destiny is free. You can just download it. So the first thing to mention is if you want the BR33 volley rifle, I think it's called, in Marathon, you have to go over here to Eternity and do an activity called the Dares of Eternity until a weapon called the BXR Battler drops. After you get that, you can pretty much do anything that you feel helps freshen your aim. In this case, I'm actually going to recommend an activity called Gambit. Just load up a private match, launch it, and shoot ads until your aim feels crisp. So yeah, this is Gambit. Just shoot ads, work on your aim. Anyway, if you're watching this video and you're a games journalist in the games industry and want to fly me down to your company to do a coaching seminar, I'm down. Just don't question my methods. If someone ends up washing my car, trust me, it has to do with aim. But jokes aside, I will formally coach both in Destiny 2 and Marathon, but obviously I need to learn Marathon first. So that's going to take a little bit until that pipeline is open. Otherwise, I will offer Destiny coaching very soon and start linking that in descriptions of all my future videos. I'm going to explain what controller dead zones are right now since I'll be asked about it in the comments section if I don't explain it here. So here we are in my garage in Destiny 2 on my alt account. I have a look sensitivity of 8. That's a very specific look sensitivity for this game. I'm going to go into Destiny nuances here because of the existence of speed boots, which give you an enhanced slide. It's a long slide, then I'm going to take the boots off. Now it's a short slide. So the reason that my sensitivity is at exactly 8 is because there are some weapons in this game that are brutally efficient from the hip. Like a gun called the Last Word, that's my most used. So I have to have a low sensitivity to control my aim from the hip. But if I wasn't tied to a hipfire weapon, I would then up my sensitivity to something like 16 and drop my aim down sights modifier to about 0.5, so I'm effectively getting that same 8 in 1.0 only when aiming down sights, which is when most weapons are accurate in Destiny, right? So the advantage of having faster sensitivity means if I'm in a gunfight and I need to get to cover on the right, 16 is a lot faster than 8, so you just do that and you're in cover and you live, versus on 8, there's a chance you might die. That's the trade-off though. You're either a turret with low sensitivity, or you're just a inferior version of mouse and keyboard that gets aimbot software installed because you play a controller. I mean, it is what it is. We play a Bungie game because they feel great for a reason. Sometimes the controller sandbox is better in some people's eyes, and other times the mouse and keyboard sandbox is better. Bungie does a really good job between the two. But back on subject here, I have my look sensitivity at exactly 8, because if I do not run speed boots, and if I want to shoot an enemy around this piece of cover, 8 is the exact amount I need to get my crosshair 90 degrees like that. Whereas with Stompies, the extended slide, if I drop it down to 6, I now have even better hip fire control. And since my slide is longer, I can start turning sooner. If that makes sense. So depending on what character you main in Marathon, what weapons you expect to use, your controller sensitivity will change to fit that playstyle. If you plan to shotgun, you're probably going to have a higher sensitivity. If you plan to snipe, you might have a lower sensitivity. If you plan to hipfire, you might have a lower sensitivity. If you have enhanced movement, you might have a lower sensitivity on one loadout, but a higher sensitivity on another if you plan to do a lot of 180-degree turns. So it just depends on the specific game. So now let's talk dead zones. So now explaining the axial dead zone, we're going back to middle school math here. Imagine an X and a Y axis on your screen. It's how much your aim is going to default to either perfectly horizontal aim or a perfectly vertical aim. It makes it essentially harder to do diagonal movements, which on a control stick is pretty difficult, and most of your engagements are actually at head level, and it's mostly horizontal tracking. So having a high axial dead zone is sometimes pretty good, but you still do need to make diagonals. So my recommendation is just look horizontally and move your stick until it's perfectly horizontal. If you start getting some random diagonals and zigzags on your aim, you need to raise the number until it's horizontal the way you expect it to be. Make sense? And in the same way, you can tell with your walk. If your walk is straight up and down, your axial is good. But if you start like zigzagging, you need to raise that number. Now, radial dead zone is a lot easier to understand. Basically, the lower the number, the more sensitive the stick is going to feel. Sometimes if you have an old controller or beat it up, you're going to have something called stick drift, which means even if you put your controller on your desk, it's just going to like drift on its own. That's bad. So what you want to do to get rid of that drift is to increase the radial dead zone until that stick drift goes away. Now, it is personal preference if you like a more sensitive stick, but in this case, I really do because it helps me control recoil better. The next thing to consider is your specific controller software, where you can do things such as change the dead zone and sensitivity curves, which I did not do in this case, and change the trigger sensitivity, which I did do. I forced these to be hair triggers, as well as, of course, have custom binds, which I did do. I changed the face buttons to mimic the D-pad so that I can claw with my right hand and still do D-pad actions, whereas on the back of the controller, I mapped my face buttons. Does that make sense? A quick note on Osu, that's a 2D circle clicking game. Top 500,000, by the way. Anyway, I uninstalled this game on my PC because I ended up playing it too much to the point where I wasn't even making videos anymore. I just love this game. It's addictingly fun, but it doesn't make you better at aiming in a 3D space. If you wanted to do that, what you have to do is you have to play a game called MiKoSu, which has a first-person version of the circle-clicking game, and that will make you better in a 3D environment, and it doesn't work on controller the way you think it would. All these Bungie games have so much aim assist cooked into the code that you can't really replicate it in other video games, so it's not going to be one-to-one. But I did want to mention that because this game is incredible. Take care, friends. I will see you in the next one.